period. For today, we have some amazing student performers behind me. I know I cannot wait to hear them. Yep. So, first off, I would love it if you would look down the aisle at the person who brought you here and give them a big thumbs up. Thank you for bringing you to Writers Week. They don't have to, okay? They don't have to. Good. Secondly, everybody please thank Mr. Anderson who's run across the stage and Mrs. Gina Ank. They are the people who put this together. Without them, this would not happen. Next thing I want you to do is make sure if you go home and your parent is a booster, if there's any boosters here, we want to thank them because they help contribute to this in more ways than one, so we want to be able to run it, so we'll give them a round of applause right now. Everybody point up, look up at the tech crew, give them a thumbs up because they've been doing an amazing job this week. It's fantastic. We couldn't do it without them. And then, really quick, just selfishly, I want to just say hi to my 8th hour class. They're sitting right there. They're the absolute best. And with that, I want to thank all of you for being an absolutely amazing crowd, super respectful students. So go ahead and thank the person next to you for doing that. Give yourself a round of applause. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good. Okay. A lot of thank yous going on. I like it. With that being said, we would appreciate it if you had the phones put away right now. And more than anything, guys, the big thing for 8th hour is please wait until we're all done. Okay? Please wait, because you want to hear everything that's up here. So, I'm done talking. I'm going to introduce these student performers, right? And they're going to do an amazing job just for you. So first up is Kishan Tika.
Hello, my name is Kishan Tika. I'm a senior, and this is my first time doing Writers Week. So, I wanted to do a quick shout out to Mrs. Ank's 8th period AP Lit class. And a shout out to Mrs. Ank also, of course. I want to preface this by saying this is an essay I wrote for my personal statement for my college applications from the Common App, so it's a little quirky, but it's fun. All right. Here's done. There are 3 crewmates left and 1 imposter remaining. The crewmates pace the ship's deck as they furiously debate the imposter's identity. Just then, the imposter's kill cooldown starts decreasing. 5, 4, 3, they see a crewmate, 2, 1. They go for the kill. Too late, an emergency meeting has been called. All the crewmates decide to vote for the imposter to be ejected. All the other crewmates who had died are giddy to have won the round, and even the imposters are happy that they were able to get so far into the game before losing. Among Us is an online game centered around a group of crewmates trying to complete tasks on a spaceship while one or many imposters hide in plain sight. The imposter's objective is to kill all the crewmates before they can complete their tasks. The crewmates also have an opportunity to call a meeting and eject members if they suspect them for being the imposter. It's a very thrilling game, but it's more than just fun. It's social commentary. Among Us came out in 2018, but didn't reach its apex of popularity until 2020, the start of the pandemic. During the pandemic, isolation compelled people to reach out from within their homes, and online gaming and communication soared. The collective national fear about an unseen enemy slowly but certainly eliminating people produced a palpable anxiety in my generation. I noticed this among my friends. We would bring up a political or social issue, such as presidential candidate policies or the virus, and tension would immediately ensue. Friends that I once thought had the same ideologies and beliefs as me argued passionately for ideas that I had never thought possible for them to espouse. I realized that I had never before discussed these issues with my friends on a meaningful level. The pandemic had only revealed what lay beneath the surface. Now, whenever I talked to my friends, a distinct paranoia arose on both sides, that disagreement would end the friendship immediately. We were supposed to be teenagers playing a video game. I felt as if everyone was a fleck of iron being drawn to the poles of a very powerful magnet. The election of 2020 only served to amplify hostilities in an already divided nation. The candidates presented visions for America that were diametrically opposed. It was us versus them. It was us versus them, for us or against us. This meant either running the country with nearly half of the population furious and spiteful towards the victorious party, or making compromises. Compromise seemed impossible as the rhetoric escalated. The enemy, like an imposter, was everywhere. The years of the pandemic pushed my generation from mild detachment towards social and political issues to impassioned activism verging on intolerance. Like Among Us, our enemies' fates could be determined by a simple vote of the majority. Each of us viewed each other as a potential imposter. None of us could be the imposter, of course. We all wanted to keep our own views and simply eject others. The stakes have never been higher. Whereas in previous generations, elections may have been a matter of preference, we are now told that life and death hang in the balance, especially where government response to a very real and deadly virus is involved. Anxiety surrounds us, hanging in the very hallways of our schools and in the air of our conversations. Despite the differing views, the silver lining is that we are actually able to voice our opinions and speak up about issues that have lain neglected. We have experienced so much more than previous generations due to our use of the internet and media that we are able to mature more mentally and develop beliefs early on, sparking change quicker than before. Even if we disagree, we are passionate about truth and eager to pass a better world on to our descendants. Thank you. All right, next up is Shruti Pratenkar.
Hi, my name is Shruti. I'm a senior. So shout out to Mrs. Eng's 8th period AP Lit class. So I also intern for an English class here at Fremd. Shout out to Mr. Anderson's 5th period freshmen who are not here, but they wanted me to do this. And if you didn't know, all interns at Fremd have to take a class on education. So my piece today is based on a reflection I had to write about a lesson that affected me and my perspective. The Spanish oral exam recording echoed, bouncing off our palpable nerves. ¿Qué significa la justicia para ti? I opened my mouth, the contents of class discussions ready to spill out. Seconds before the signal to speak, the flood of thoughts in my brain paused. What does justice mean to you? The prompt asked. Nyai, justicia, justice. 3 words carrying the same meaning, 3 words from cultures that interpret that meaning in a myriad of ways. I grew up trilingual, speaking Hindi, English, and a regional language of India, Marathi. I've also studied Spanish for 6 years, through middle and high school. When I was younger, I resented the jumbled stew of languages swirling around in my brain. Mondays were always the hardest. I hated telling my class, my 1st grade class, that my best weekend plans were the Sunday showing of a new Hindi movie. I'd follow my mother past posters of Marvel films and one-time watch romantic comedies, clutching a box of popcorn as big as my torso. As I settled into a creaky red chair and the projector clicked on, I'd imagine AMC 30 floating away, like that house in Up, straight to the sets of a Bollywood project. Far away from the snickers at the British pronunciation I'd inherited from my parents, far from the stacks of books in Indian languages I couldn't read, far from the push and pull between the tectonic plates of 2 countries that could never connect long enough for the pounding in my head to stop. I was angry, I guess. It felt like my inability to master English or Marathi was like peeling the paint back on one of those DIY home renovations, revealing that I was a fraud that didn't belong anywhere. As I grew, I became more comfortable with that push and pull, molding the U-shaped magnet of my existence into a metal bar firmly attached to both cultures. Language was more than a weight holding me to my identity. It was like those balloons I loved from Up, propelling me higher. Marathi served as a bridge between me and my grandfather, reconciling his stories from British occupation with stories from history books I read. Hindi allowed me to talk to my sick grandmother's nurse about the harassment she faced when she immigrated from northern India. Spanish pushed me to watch documentaries on the ethnic cleansing of the Maya in Guatemala. When I learned languages, I learned about people, and I was able to understand what justice meant to them. My grandfather viewed justice as the right to live in his own country as a first-class citizen. The nurse views justice as the chance to live peacefully without harassment for her religion or her caste. The Maya view justice as accountability for the crimes of the past. As my world expanded to fill more than the Sunday matinee and the shame that swallowed me as a child, I learned that languages have gifted me the ability to speak the greatest language of all, empathy. I can relate to the fear of conversing with a visiting student from Barcelona, words lining my brain but refusing to spill onto my tongue. I've stood in the center of a crowded Mumbai intersection, sounding out street names to find my way home. I've grown to accept, even appreciate, the discomfort of switching between languages. I've discovered that the people that I have the hardest time communicating with often have the most extraordinary stories to share. I will never, ever have all the answers, but I know that language has given me the tools to ask the right questions. So, I don't remember most of that Spanish exam, but I do know that I ended by saying, La justicia comienza a escuchar a otros. Justice starts at listening to others. Thank you so much. Next up is AJ Lynch.
Okay, hi, my name's AJ. I'm a freshman, and a quick shout out to Mr. Anderson's 8th period class. Okay, so this is just a fictitious story I wrote for Writers Week, and without further ado, I would like to read to you all Guardian Angel. My hair has grown out too long. My cardigan is the same as yesterday. My mind is as foggy as a cloudy morning, and the scars on my body are flashing a crimson glow under my sleeves. I analyze myself in the mirror again, waiting for my head to tell me something's wrong. I looked at the kitchen just nearby, where a bruised banana lay flat on the table. I just start to tear up. I can't stop. The banana reminds me of myself, its tired rot looking out to the world. A banana has no impact on the world. Neither does Miss Vivica Wood. My name may be unique, but I am not. I'm a high school student who works as hard as the person to my right. There's truly only a handful of gifted kids, the slow learners, and then there's the rest of us. I empty out my backpack. I really don't feel like going to school, but I can't miss chemistry. Second period chemistry is the only class I like, other than lunch, which is the last period. I threw everything out of my bag except my math book, chemistry notebook, and my blanket wrapped with a few items. I throw my backpack onto me and notice it's much lighter. I left the empty house and walked my 1-block journey to school. A black cat approaches me as I walk to the parking lot. Hey, silly, I don't think she'd go this way. This is a human school, I coo. I walk off through the parking lot. I entered while eating a snack of crackers and milk. The milk expired 4 days ago, but it's good for another week, I think. My friends see me and wave me over. Rebecca and Matt are playing cards to play. I only sit and watch them bicker over who won their game of war. They're so clueless. The warning bell rings and the three of us run to math. Geometry is boring. I just zone out until the bell. It's time for chemistry, and I am nauseous. Mrs. H waves to me smiling. She motions me over to pass out the quiz we're having today. No big deal. I'll just take the quiz, throw up a little, get sent home, and go off to the forest. Everyone pours in, and Miss H quiets us down with a quick clap. Okay, everybody, get excited. We have a quiz today. It's super easy, and we just went over the same exact questions yesterday. So go on, get started, you're solid, she shouts as she ambles to her desk. A bit of exhaustion hinted in her crash. She starts combing her hair. Nausea punches my stomach as I advance through each question. I should have drank fresher milk. I couldn't take it anymore. I scrawled the last bubble in on the quiz and sprinted for the trash can. My mouth gave way and I threw up in it. Mrs. H and I exchange sorry glances when I look up. I am so sorry, I quickly said. Mrs. H replies, don't worry about it, Vivica. It happens. I called the nurse. I smile and add a, thanks, Mrs. H. The nurse opens the door and hands me a small trash can. I leave room 205. She stays with me, even if I stop or slow down. Her sympathetic blue eyes gaze at me. I wish my eyes were that blue. My dad's car outside the building welcomes me with towels on my seat and a few trash bags. There's something behind the car. It's the cat. I step into the car. Laying in bed, I see the forest outside. It draws me in as I climb out the window with my backpack. I sprint to my favorite thicket. I throw down my bag and open it. I'm greeted by a scratch to the arm and a meow. It's the cat. He begins to walk off, but waits for me. I groan and reluctantly follow this cat. He jumps over the creek, and I leap after him shyly. I've never gone over the creek. I didn't really care at this point. I'm lost in trusting a cat to take me across a forest and back. I must truly be crazy. He repeatedly checks if I'm behind him until we reach a tree with a swing on it. I don't know how this can fix anything, but I sit and swing anyway. I pet the cat. I don't know what he wants, but he's nice. Life really does have nice things, like cats. I'm glad I could come out to this forest. The cat perks up like he accomplished his mission. He leads me back to the thicket and turns out to leave me. I smile as I start walking home. He didn't notice that I saw him grow angel wings and fly away. Thank you. If you can't tell, that one went out to the cat people. Love you, cat people. Okay, and next up is Ishan Srivastava.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Ishan. I'm a junior, and I'd like to quickly give a big shout out to Frau Soto's 8th period German class. Thank you to each of you for being here today. And thank you to everybody else for coming here to cheer me on. I'm truly grateful. Now, my piece is called We Did Not Lose on January 6th. Some quick backstory. On January 6th, 2021, rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. in an effort to stop the certification of the 2020 election. And this was an issue that affected me deeply, and it's been something that I've cared about for the 2 years since it has happened, and I've made it a personal mission to fight for democracy and to keep fighting against the values of those that tried to undermine our democracy back on January 6th. So without any further ado, we did not lose on January 6th. January 6th was a normal day for millions of Americans. We woke up, we ate, we talked. We relaxed on that Wednesday, but also on that day, with the snap of a finger, everything we had known to love about our country was almost gone. So many of us didn't know. So many of us didn't care. What many saw as an attack on a building was really an attack on our democracy. As the glass windows shattered and we all helplessly watched, I still remember the truly grueling images of the People's House being torn down as rioters stormed the offices of senators and representatives in the name of country. Innocent staff members hid under tables. They barricaded windows and locked doors just so they wouldn't get hurt. The Confederate flag, the banner of those who betrayed our country, flew for the very first time in the U.S. Capitol building, a temple to democracy and freedom. The lives of thousands, including those of the vice president and the speaker, were put at risk. Capitol police officers were beaten. People died that day. January 6th was excruciating, and it was arguably one of the lowest points in our shared 246-year history, joining a very short list of days that will go down in infamy. I was just 14 years old on January 6th, but I, along with millions of Americans, have come to realize the magnitude of that day. Now, we as Americans have two options of viewing January 6th. Either we can view it for the disgraces that it had, or we can view it as a ground zero to start healing and fixing this country. When we think about the disgraces of January 6th, there's an endless list of things for us to consider. The most painful to think about is that the people who falsely coded their intentions in patriotism were incited by people who were supposed to unite our country. These so-called uniters knew that they weren't going to get what they wanted, but they needed an encore before becoming this riot's biggest criminals. January 6th was an example of their dereliction of duty and misconduct. Even more painful to imagine was how this was designed to be an attack on our way of governing, one in which everyone has a say, one in which freedom is protected, one in which democracy prevails. However, when those very leaders took part in dismantling the fabric of the oldest democracy on the face of this earth, I really felt like I lost. America felt like it lost. When the founding fathers created this country, I doubt they ever anticipated the heights of division that this country has reached. But that's what caused this event: hyperpolarization, hatred, closing the door on each other. We can't even talk to one another anymore. We resort to violence to make our points. But that's juxtaposed to the fact that we're the most powerful country in the world. That's funny to think about. We are the most democratic country. We are the freest. But I think we've taken for granted the freedoms and the democracy that make this country what it is. And a rubber band stretched too thin will one day snap. Those who wish America harm will look at January 6th and use it as exhibit number 1 when prosecuting the case against this country's ideals. They will say that we as a country cannot work together, that we cannot tolerate each other, that we cannot love each other. And right now, they're doing a good job of it. While January 6th did force us to understand the magnitude of the attack that happened that day, we really need to understand that there's a long road ahead. We're far from where we should be. We cannot give authoritarian governments the ammunition that they need to sow divisions in this country down to its foundation. We must come together and we must look ahead together. That brings me to the second way of viewing January 6th. Our key values of liberty, democracy, freedom, and justice are what guide this country and, by extension, us. Through the toughest points in our history, we have persevered as we have strived for a better future for this country, from women's suffrage to the civil rights movement, and there's a long road ahead. But the fact that we have the ability to speak freely and read whatever we want and say whatever we want and fight for our values is the best arm against authoritarianism. When we speak as a country, we're mighty, proud, and loud, Democrat or Republican. When we come together, we are the strongest force in the world. Those people who stormed the Capitol were heavily misinformed and misused their powers of American democracy to overturn our democracy. That's not us. That cannot be us ever again. We have to understand the implications of something like this and then ask ourselves, did we lose on January 6th? I've spent the last 2 years asking myself this very important question, and over again, that while the tense feelings of that day urge me to point in one direction, my faith in this country's ideals compel me to look towards hope. Throughout our history, we have strived for excellence, and we have not given up. We have not given up during the toughest points in our history, the Civil War, World War II, and even tougher times. And I don't see why we should give up today. We should continue to fight because that's what this country is all about. And so when the question is put to the table, did we lose on January 6th? I say no. We did not lose on January 6th. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And now I'd like to call up Fish Mehdi.
Hi, I'm Fish. Before I start, shout out to Miss Fritch's 8th period class. All my friends who made it out of their way to attend, and the hottest person in the room per request. Okay. This piece is called Whole. Have you ever looked in the mirror? And I don't mean to see if your makeup's still good or your hair is really that messy. I mean, look in the mirror. Studying the little flecks in your eyes or the curves of your lips, all the freckles and acne and pores, taking notes of how each face feature has changed over time, taking note of how you changed over time. Have you ever looked in the mirror and noticed how you've changed, how your eyes sag ever so slightly, how the scars and bumps line your face? Have you ever looked in the mirror and noticed the world has changed? There's more clutters on your shelves, new posters on your walls, new bed sheets. Have you ever looked in the mirror and seen a stranger looking back at you? Have you ever seen a stranger with your face instead of a reflection? Have you ever looked in the mirror and been unrecognizable? Have you ever looked in the mirror and have the mirror look back, your reflection studying the little flecks of light in your eyes or the curves of your lips, all the freckles, acne, and pores, taking note of how each feature has changed over time, taking note of how you ever changed in the time? Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered if you're the reflection? The whole world around you is nothing but a construct for a single pane of glass. Have you ever looked in the mirror and have the mirror look back? Next up is Gianna Pentry.
I think I pronounced that right. Hi, my name's Gianna Petrini. The video I'm showing today, I made it for my English class, so shout out to Miss O'Donnell's 8th period. And also my friends and my family who came here today. This video that I'm gonna show right now is about my brother Carmine, who has cerebral palsy. Cerebral, it's a motor and a brain disability. I wanted not only to tell, but to only show you some of his accomplishments, and I thought no better way to do that than to have him actually be in it, which is why I made a video. Also one of the reasons was I think that sometimes we as a society tend to overlook and take for granted some of the things that we consider easy in life and we don't really think about. So, yeah. One second, please. Okay, here it is. Okay. Thank you. Hey guys, it's Carmen and John. Thank you. I was told, like, anyone have questions or something? Carmine, if you want to, Carmine's here right now, so Carmine, if you want to stand up, you can. He says hi. Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you for being a wonderful audience. How great were they? Give them another round of applause. And another round of applause for Carmine, our guest performer, the man. That's where it's at. All right, guys, so we're gonna ask our panel a couple questions here to get their insight on some questions that we have pre-made here. So the first question I'm going to ask is, you know how you guys all study the historical context of a novel you're reading? You know what I'm talking about? Like my students, when they read Of Mice and Men, they had to look up the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. They had to learn what it was like for George and Lenny to live in those time periods, right? So the first question I'm going to ask is, if you could live in any universe that has to do with like a book, a movie, a show, which universe would you live in? I'm guessing probably not the Of Mice and Men universe, because you don't want to live after the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl and stuff like that, but which universe?
This universe is not that great. It's bad, so I'd probably go for some sort of fantasy world that gives me special powers and stuff.
X-Men, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Probably not a superhero movie.
I'd probably live in the Jane the Virgin universe, Team Raphael forever.
I have like a bajillion worlds in my head just all going on at once, so probably one of them, fantasy-esque ones.
I'd probably say from like a book, probably like the Inheritance Games, because I like the idea of hanging out with the Hawthorne brothers and living in a mansion and having a lot of money.
So that's a really good question. I'd say the Star Wars universe or something like that. But yeah.
You would expect for me to say the Among Us universe based on my essay, but I would probably go with Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's been a favorite show of mine for a while. Can't go wrong.
Nice, nice. All right, we got a couple minutes here to get a question or two from the audience for one performer or the entire panel. So if you would like to ask a question, raise your hand and I'll call on you. Go ahead, right here. This is for Gianna. What was your first reaction when you found out about Carmine?
So Carmine and I are 2 years apart. I'm older. He was diagnosed with cerebral palsy when he was like 10 weeks old. So I don't really remember the moment that he was disabled, but I do remember his first surgery. He had a back surgery so that he would be able to walk without a wheelchair. With a wheelchair. It's just always you get accustomed to it when it's been your life since you can remember.
Okay, we've got time for maybe one more question right here. Yeah. Gianna, what grade is Carmine in?
So Carmine is actually in 8th grade. He goes to Plum Grove, and he's actually coming to Fremd next year. So, so it's very exciting. It's the first time he and I will ever be going to the same school together, because we went to different elementary schools because the program at the other school was better for him. So if you're my friend or he knows your name, he will say hi to you in the hallways very loud, and you just have to say hi back.
Carmine, you're already famous, buddy. It's great. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being amazing. Have a wonderful rest of your day.